My sister begged me to co-sign her mortgage because the bank said she couldn't qualify a loan. She promised we'd own the house together. 3 months later, I accidentally found out I was never supposed to live there. I always believed family came first. Growing up, my younger sister Emma and I were inseparable. When our parents divorced, we only had each other. I was 16. She was 12. I walked her to school, helped her with homework, worked part-time after classes so Mom wouldn't have to worry about groceries. Back then, I would have done anything for her. I guess some habits never really disappear. Fast forward 15 years. I was 31. Emma had recently gotten engaged to her boyfriend, Tyler. They'd been together for about 4 years. They seemed happy, responsible, the kind of couple everyone expected to buy a nice house and settle down. Then one Saturday afternoon, Emma called me in tears. "Can you come over?" Her voice was shaking. "I really need you." I dropped everything and drove straight to her apartment. She opened the door with red eyes and a stack of papers in her hands. I don't know what to do. I sat beside her. "What's wrong?" She pushed the paperwork toward me. "The bank rejected us. For the mortgage." She nodded. "They said Tyler's credit score isn't high enough. And mine isn't enough by itself." I looked through the documents. She wasn't lying. The application had been declined. "We already put down a deposit on the house," she whispered. "If we don't close next month, we'll lose everything." Then she looked directly at me. "I hate asking this, but would you co-sign the mortgage?" I froze. That wasn't a small favor. Co-signing meant I would be legally responsible if they stopped making payments. It could affect my own ability to buy a house someday. It was a huge decision. "I don't know, Emma." She immediately grabbed my hand. "I'd never ask if there were another option. We'll make every payment. I promise. It's just paperwork. You won't even notice." A few minutes later, Tyler came home. He looked embarrassed. "I know this is a lot to ask. I wouldn't blame you if you said no." Then he smiled. "But we want this to be your home too." I frowned. "My home?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Of course. You've always wanted to move closer to us. The house has a finished basement. We thought you could have your own space." Tyler added, "And once everything settles down, we'll officially add your name to the property." That made me pause. "So we'd all own it together." "Exactly." Emma smiled. "We're family." For the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Marcus, my best friend, thought I was crazy. "You don't co-sign loans, especially mortgages. They're your family. So, they'd never screw me over." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Daniel, the people who say, 'Trust me the most,' are usually the ones asking for something expensive." I laughed. "You've watched too many crime documentaries." He shrugged. "Maybe. But get everything in writing." I should have listened. Instead, I trusted my sister. The mortgage was approved. Emma cried when she got the news. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You saved us. I'll never forget this." Tyler shook my hand. "I owe you." For the first time in weeks, everyone looked relieved, including me. Moving day was exciting. The house was beautiful. A quiet neighborhood. Large backyard. Modern kitchen. Exactly the kind of place I'd imagined spending holidays with my family. Emma showed me around. "This is the guest room. This is our bedroom. This is the office." Then she smiled. And downstairs. That's going to be your space. It wasn't huge, but it was perfect. I honestly believed we'd made the right decision. Over the next few weeks, I started buying furniture for the basement. A couch, a desk, a TV, even a small coffee machine. Emma kept saying, "Take your time. We want you to feel at home." So I did. I spent nearly $8,000 making the basement comfortable. It finally felt like my place. Or so I thought. 3 months later, I came home early from work because one of our construction projects had been postponed. As I walked toward the front door, I heard voices inside. Emma, Tyler, and someone else. A woman I'd never met. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Then I heard Emma laugh and say something that made me stop in my tracks. "Don't worry. As soon as Daniel helps us refinance, the basement will be yours." My heart skipped a beat. I stayed completely still. Then Tyler laughed. He still thinks he's going to live here forever. And suddenly, every promise my sister had made didn't feel like a promise anymore. It felt like the beginning of a very expensive mistake. I stood outside the front door for what felt like forever. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were joking. Maybe there was another Daniel. I wanted any explanation except the obvious one. Then Emma spoke again. "I honestly can't believe he agreed to co-sign." The woman laughed. "You got lucky." Emma didn't even hesitate. I knew he'd say yes. He's always been the responsible one. Tyler chuckled. He would have signed anything if we told him it was for family. Those words hit harder than I expected. Not because they were loud. Because they sounded rehearsed. Like this conversation had happened before. I quietly stepped away from the house. I didn't want them to know I'd heard anything. Instead of going inside, I drove around for almost an hour. The entire time, I kept replaying the conversation. Had they been using me from the very beginning? Or had something changed after we moved in? Either answer was terrible. When I finally returned home, everything looked normal. Emma smiled the second I walked through the door. "There you are. We were wondering where you'd been." Oh. My friend Ashley stopped by. The same woman I'd heard earlier. Emma introduced us. Ashley smiled politely. "It's nice to finally meet you." Finally. Had she known about me this whole time? I forced a smile. "You too." Dinner that night felt different. Emma talked nonstop about paint colors. Tyler discussed landscaping. They acted like the happiest homeowners in the world. Every few minutes someone said, "Our house." Not, "Our home together." Just, "Our house." Maybe I was imagining it. Or maybe I'd finally started noticing what had always been there. The following weekend, I decided to organize my paperwork. Mortgage documents, insurance papers, utility bills. I wanted copies for my records. When I opened the folder, something immediately caught my attention. The mortgage listed my name. Exactly as expected. But the property deed didn't. I checked again. Then a third time. Only 2 names appeared. Emma. Tyler. That couldn't be right. Tyler had specifically told me they'd add my name to the property. Emma had promised the same thing. I remembered the conversation perfectly. So we'd all own it together. Exactly. Those were her exact words. I walked upstairs holding the paperwork. "Emma." She looked up from her laptop. "Yeah." I noticed something. "What?" My name isn't on the deed. She barely looked at the documents. Oh, that's normal. It takes time. How much time? She shrugged. I don't know. The lawyer handles all that. Then she immediately changed the subject. Can you help Tyler move the grill this afternoon? The conversation was over. Or rather, she made sure it was. Later that evening, I called Marcus. You were right. I wish I wasn't. I explained everything. The conversation I'd overheard. The missing name on the deed. Emma's vague explanation. Marcus sighed. Daniel, have you actually talked to the lawyer who handled the purchase? No. Why not? I trusted them. He was quiet for a moment. Stop trusting. Start verifying. Monday morning, I took his advice. I called the law office listed on the closing documents. The receptionist transferred me to the attorney who handled the purchase. He was friendly, professional, until I asked one simple question. I was wondering when my name would be added to the property deed. There was a long pause. I'm sorry. Added? Yes. I co-signed the mortgage. I was told I'd become a co-owner. Another pause. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. Mr. Carter, based on our records, there has never been any request to add your name to the deed. I felt the room spinning. What do you mean? The ownership documents submitted before closing listed only Ms. Carter and Mr. Lawson. Those documents were finalized weeks before you signed the mortgage. So, they already knew. I'm only explaining what's in the file. They never instructed our office to prepare ownership paperwork, including your name. I thanked him mechanically and ended the call. That afternoon, I couldn't even look at Emma. Every smile felt fake. Every thank you sounded rehearsed. She'd promised we'd own the house together. But according to the attorney, that had never been part of the plan. Not for one single day. 2 days later, another strange thing happened. I came home from work and found measuring tape stretched across the basement. Ashley was there again, along with a man carrying renovation samples. Emma looked surprised to see me. Oh, you're home early. The contractor smiled. We're measuring the basement. I frowned. For what? Ashley answered before Emma could. I'm moving in next month. The room went completely silent. Emma's face turned pale. Ashley slowly realized she'd said something she wasn't supposed to. She looked at Emma. Emma looked at me. Nobody spoke. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. Moving into my basement. Nobody answered. Ashley looked at Emma. Emma looked at Tyler. Tyler stared at the floor. The silence lasted only a few seconds. But it told me everything. Finally, Emma forced a laugh. It's not what it sounds like. I folded my arms. Then explain. Ashley quietly grabbed her purse. I think I should go. No, Emma said quickly. It's fine. Ashley looked incredibly uncomfortable before slipping out the front door without another word. The contractor awkwardly packed up his measuring tape. I'll come back another day. Within 30 seconds. It was just the three of us. I looked directly at my sister. So, she took a deep breath. Ashley misunderstood. Misunderstood what? We were just talking about possibilities. What possibilities? Emma hesitated. Well, if you ever decided to move out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move out. She nodded. I mean, you've talked about buying your own place someday. I've never said I was leaving. Tyler finally spoke. Nobody's asking you to leave. Really? Then why was a contractor measuring my basement? Neither of them answered. That night I couldn't sleep. Every promise Emma had made kept replaying in my head. You'll always have your own space. We're doing this together. We're family. Looking back, every sentence sounded different. Not because she'd changed. Because I finally understood what she'd meant. The next morning I called in sick. Not because I was ill. Because I needed answers. I drove straight to the county records office. If there was one thing construction had taught me, it was to trust paperwork more than promises. 20 minutes later, a clerk handed me copies of the public property records. Everything matched what the attorney had told me. Owners: Emma Carter, Tyler Lawson. That's it. No pending amendments. No ownership transfer. No additional filings. Nothing. Legally, I wasn't part owner. I never had been. As I walked back to my truck, my phone rang. It was Mom. Hi, sweetheart. Hi. Emma told me you two had a little misunderstanding. Of course she had. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Oh. She promised I'd be a co-owner. Mom sighed. I'm sure she'll fix it. I asked the attorney. There was silence. What attorney? The one who handled the purchase. Another pause. Then Mom quietly said, maybe you should just let this go. That surprised me. You knew. They're newly engaged. It's stressful. Mom, did you know my name was never supposed to be on the deed? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I ended the call feeling worse than before. Not because Emma had lied. Because Mom knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. When I got home that afternoon, Emma was waiting in the kitchen. I wish you'd talk to me first. I tried. You didn't. I literally asked why my name wasn't on the deed. She crossed her arms. You embarrassed us by calling the lawyer. I laughed. I embarrassed you. Yes. You made it sound like we were trying to scam you. I stared at her. Weren't you? Her face hardened. I can't believe you'd accuse your own sister of that. There it was. Not an explanation. Not an apology. Just guilt. Tyler walked in halfway through the conversation. Can we all calm down? I looked at him. You told me we'd own the house together. He rubbed the back of his neck. That was the plan. Was. Things changed. When? He looked at Emma before answering. After closing. So nobody thought to tell me. We didn't know how. I shook my head. No. You knew exactly how. You just hoped I'd never ask. The conversation ended with everyone angry. Emma slammed her bedroom door. Tyler disappeared into the garage. I went downstairs. For the first time, the basement didn't feel like home. It felt like a room I was borrowing. That evening Marcus came over. I handed him the property records. He read them without saying a word. Finally, he looked up. You know what bothers me? What? They're acting like the deed is the biggest problem. It isn't. He shook his head. No. The real question is. He tapped the mortgage paperwork. What happens if they stop paying? I frowned. I'd still be responsible. Exactly. You carry the risk. They keep the house. I stared at the documents. He was right. If Emma and Tyler ever defaulted, the bank could come after me. But if the house increased in value, I wouldn't own a single square foot. I had all the responsibility. And none of the benefit. The next morning, another envelope arrived in the mail. It was from the mortgage company. I almost ignored it. Then I noticed something unusual. Important notice, immediate response requested. I opened it. As I read the first paragraph, my heart sank. The mortgage company was requesting updated financial information because someone had already submitted paperwork to remove my name from the loan. The request hadn't been approved yet, but someone had already started the process. The signature line listed the applicants: Emma Carter, Tyler Lawson. Neither of them had said a single word to me. I read the letter 3 times. Then a fourth. Maybe I'd misunderstood the legal language. Maybe it was just routine paperwork. I called the number at the bottom of the page. After verifying my identity, the representative pulled up the file. Yes, Mr. Carter. There was a request submitted last week. Who submitted it? The primary borrowers. Emma and Tyler. When were they planning to tell me? I'm sorry, sir. I can't answer that. What happens if I'm removed? If you're approved for release, you'll no longer be responsible for the mortgage. That sounded like good news. Until she added one more sentence. The application was declined. Declined. Yes. The borrowers no longer meet the bank's lending requirements without your financial guarantee. I thanked her and hung up. For a long time, I just sat in my truck. So that was the plan. Remove me from the mortgage. As soon as the bank allowed it. Not because they wanted to protect me. Because they didn't need me anymore. Except, the bank still did. That evening, Emma acted as if nothing had happened. We're ordering pizza. You want pepperoni? I looked at her. When were you going to tell me? She frowned. Tell you what? You tried to remove me from the mortgage. The room became completely silent. Tyler slowly put his drink down. Emma's expression changed instantly. It's not what you think. Really? Then explain. She took a deep breath. We were just seeing if we'd qualify. So you filed paperwork behind my back. It wasn't a big deal. I couldn't believe she'd actually said that. It wasn't a big deal. No. We didn't think it would bother you. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I honestly didn't know how else to react. Tyler stepped forward. We were going to tell you. When? He hesitated. Eventually. Eventually. That word had become their favorite excuse. Eventually, we'd add my name. Eventually, we'd fix the paperwork. Eventually, they'd tell me the truth. Apparently. Eventually never came. I walked downstairs without another word. About an hour later, there was a knock on my door. Emma. She stood there with 2 mugs of coffee. Can we talk? I sighed. Sure. She sat on the couch. You know I love you. I didn't answer. You've always looked out for me. Still nothing. She smiled nervously. This house means everything to us. I finally spoke. I know. And I helped make it possible. She nodded. Exactly. That single word bothered me. Not thank you. Not I'm sorry. Just. Exactly. The next morning, I met Marcus before work. He listened quietly while I explained everything. When I finished, he asked, Did she apologize? No. Did Tyler? No. Did either of them admit they lied? No. Marcus leaned back. Then stop hoping they'll suddenly become honest. He pulled out a notepad. If I were you, I'd prepare for the worst. What do you mean? I think they're going to ask you for more money. I laughed. No chance. You really think this ends here? I wanted to say yes. Instead, I stayed quiet. 3 days later, Marcus turned out to be right. Emma called while I was at work. Can you come home early? Why? It's important. When I walked into the kitchen, there were papers spread across the table. Estimates, invoices, contractor quotes. Tyler smiled awkwardly. We've been talking. Emma looked excited. We want to finish the basement. I stared at her. The basement. She nodded. It'll increase the property's value. Property. Not home. Property. She slid one of the estimates toward me. Basement renovation, $34,600. Then she smiled. We thought maybe you could help cover part of it. I honestly thought she was joking. You want me to pay to renovate the part of the house you were planning to give someone else? Emma's smile disappeared. Who told you that? I looked directly at her. You did. The day Ashley came over. She immediately looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at the floor. Neither of them denied it. For the first time since all of this started, Emma became angry. You've been spying on us. I stared at her in disbelief. Spying. You overheard a private conversation. I was walking into the house where you told me I lived. She crossed her arms. You took it out of context. Then give me the context. Silence. Again. Always silence. That night I packed a small suitcase. Not because I planned to disappear. Because I needed space to think. As I carried the bag upstairs, Emma saw me. What are you doing? I'm staying with Marcus for a few days. She looked genuinely shocked. You're leaving. For now. You can't just walk out. I looked around the house. I already have. Marcus opened the door before I even knocked. You look terrible. I feel worse. He handed me a spare key. Stay as long as you need. For the first time in weeks. I slept through the entire night. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls from Emma. 7 text messages. 3 voicemails. The last text simply read, If you don't come back today, we might lose the house. I frowned. That didn't make any sense. The mortgage payment wasn't due for another 2 weeks. Something else had happened. Something they still weren't telling me. I read Emma's message at least 10 times. If you don't come back today, we might lose the house. It didn't make sense. The mortgage wasn't due. Utilities were paid. Property taxes had already been scheduled. So what exactly had gone wrong? I called her. She answered on the first ring. Daniel. What's happening? Can you just come home? No. Tell me first. There was a long silence. Finally, she whispered. The bank called. An hour later, I met Emma and Tyler at a coffee shop instead of the house. Neither of them looked like they'd slept. Emma's eyes were red. Tyler wouldn't even look at me. I sat down. Start talking. Emma took a deep breath. When we tried removing you from the mortgage. I know. The bank reviewed everything. And they requested updated financial documents. I nodded. That's normal. She shook her head. No. They also reviewed Tyler's income. My stomach tightened. What about it? Tyler finally spoke. I lost my job. I blinked. When? He looked down. Almost 2 months ago. 2 months. He'd been unemployed for 2 months. And nobody had told me. You've been pretending to go to work. Tyler nodded slowly. I didn't want anyone to panic. Emma quickly interrupted. He was interviewing. We thought he'd find something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So while he wasn't earning anything, you were trying to remove me from the mortgage. Neither of them answered. That was answer enough. Emma leaned forward. We didn't want you to worry. I laughed. You didn't want me to worry. I'm legally responsible for this loan. You absolutely should have told me. Tears filled her eyes. We thought we'd fix everything before you found out. That sentence sounded familiar. Everything was always going to be fixed. Later. Eventually. Soon. Never now. Tyler finally looked at me. I'm sorry. I really am. I never wanted this. I stared at him. Then why lie? He swallowed. Because I was embarrassed. That I actually believed. For the first time since all this started. Someone had told me something that sounded honest. Emma reached across the table. The bank says we have one option. I already knew I wasn't going to like it. What option? She slid another folder toward me. I don't want to. But if you increase your financial guarantee, we'll qualify. I stared at her. You want me to take on even more responsibility? It's temporary. There it was again. Temporary. Their favorite word. I closed the folder without opening it. No. Emma's face fell. Please. No. We're family. I was family when you needed my signature. She started crying. You don't understand. No. I understand perfectly. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Tyler surprised me. He pushed the folder away from me. Emma. Stop. She looked at him. We can't keep asking him. We have to deal with this ourselves. Emma turned toward him in disbelief. What are you saying? I'm saying this is our mess. We created it. She shook her head. But we'll lose the house. Tyler quietly answered. Maybe we deserve to. That sentence changed the entire conversation. Emma looked completely shocked. She'd expected Tyler to support her. Instead, he was agreeing with me. A week passed. No calls. No texts. No guilt trips. It was strangely peaceful. Then my lawyer called. I've received something interesting. What is it? A copy of the bank's final decision. And they denied every request to modify the mortgage. Why? The bank determined the borrowers concealed material financial changes. I frowned. What does that mean? They failed to disclose Tyler's unemployment during the application review. My heart sank. That wasn't just a mistake. That was serious. 2 days later, Emma showed up at Marcus's apartment. She looked exhausted. I just want to talk. Marcus looked at me. It's your decision. I stepped outside. Emma immediately started crying. I'm sorry. I stayed quiet. I should have told you everything. Yes. I should have put your name on the house. Yes. I thought. She couldn't finish. What? I thought once we moved in, everything would somehow work itself out. I sighed. It doesn't work that way. She wiped away her tears. The bank gave us 30 days. 30 days for what? To refinance. And if you can't? She looked at the ground. We'll have to sell. I nodded slowly. I understand. She looked up. That's all. What else do you expect me to say? She whispered. I thought maybe you'd save us again. For the first time. I answered without hesitation. No. Emma stood there for several seconds. Then she nodded. I guess I earned that. She turned around and walked away. I honestly thought that would be the last time I ever saw her. I was wrong. Because 3 weeks later, I received an official envelope from the courthouse. I opened it. My eyes immediately locked onto the first line. Notice of civil action. Emma, my own sister, was suing me. I stared at the envelope for several seconds. There had to be some mistake. Emma wouldn't sue me. Not after everything that had happened. Not after I'd helped her buy the house in the first place. Slowly, I opened the packet. The lawsuit claimed that my decision to move out and refuse additional financial assistance had caused significant financial hardship. She was asking the court to order me to compensate her for damages. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. Marcus looked over the paperwork. You've got to be kidding. I wish I were. He flipped through the pages. Then he smiled. This is going to fail. You think so? I know so. Why? He pointed at the first paragraph. She's suing you because you wouldn't voluntarily give her more money. He shrugged. That's not how the law works. My lawyer called the next morning. I've reviewed everything. And you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So she doesn't have a case. Not even close. He paused. Actually, this lawsuit might end up hurting her more than you. How? Because now we'll be requesting all of the financial records related to the mortgage, the property purchase, and every communication surrounding your agreement. For the first time in months, I smiled. Emma had opened a door she couldn't close. A month later, both sides met for mediation before the court hearing. Emma looked exhausted. Tyler looked even worse. Neither of them smiled. The mediator asked a simple question. What outcome are you hoping for? Emma spoke first. We just want what's fair. My lawyer slid a folder across the table. So does my client. Inside were copies of everything. The text messages promising I'd become a co-owner. The emails about sharing the house. The mortgage documents. The county property records. Even the bank's denial letter. The mediator spent nearly 20 minutes reading. Finally, he looked up. Mrs. Carter. He frowned. Why was Mr. Carter never added to the deed after these promises were made? Emma couldn't answer. Then my lawyer asked another question. Were you already planning to remove my client from the mortgage before informing him? Silence. Did you submit paperwork to the bank without his knowledge? More silence. The mediator slowly removed his glasses. I think I've heard enough. The mediation ended less than an hour later. Emma agreed to withdraw the lawsuit completely. No payment. No settlement. Nothing. The case was over before it ever reached a courtroom. A week later, the house officially went on the market. Tyler still hadn't found stable work. Without my financial support, they couldn't refinance. Selling was their only realistic option. Ironically, the market had improved. The house sold for more than they originally paid. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, they walked away with a modest profit. Enough to start over. Not enough to erase what had happened. About 2 months later, Emma asked if we could meet. We sat in the same coffee shop where she'd once asked me to increase my financial guarantee. She looked different. Quieter. I owe you an apology. I didn't interrupt. I kept telling myself I wasn't taking advantage of you. But I was. I convinced myself it was temporary. That I'd fix everything later. She looked down. Instead, I just kept lying. I nodded slowly. I know. She took a deep breath. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to hear me admit it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, I hope you've learned something from all of this. She nodded. I have. A year later, I finally bought my own house. This time, the paperwork was simple. One buyer. One owner. My name. No verbal promises. No hidden expectations. Just clear agreements. Exactly the way they should be. Marcus helped me move in. As we carried the last box inside, he laughed. So, anyone asking you to co-sign another mortgage? I smiled. Not a chance. He grinned. I figured. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't almost losing money. It wasn't the arguments. It wasn't even the lawsuit. The hardest part was realizing that trust without boundaries isn't kindness. Sometimes, it's an invitation for people to take more than they should. I still love my sister. She's family. That never changed. But now, I understand something I wish I'd learned years earlier. Helping family should never require giving up common sense. Because the people who truly care about you will never ask you to risk everything while they risk nothing.